Hello and welcome back to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it. We talk about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment, like and share the program, and encourage your friends to do the same. Make sure you share it so that your friends, they'll know where the conversation is taking place. And remember, if you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube, make sure you hit that notification button. That way you'll be notified as soon as we go live. You can participate in the live chat as the program is taking place. Also, want to remind you, please remember to support FPC Gear. That's fpcgear.com. It is the place to go to get all of your cool Pro 2A swag. FPC takes much pride in making sure that we have clothing with a message, but also that, looks good. So this way you can support the Second Amendment and you can look good doing it. Remember, that's fpcgear.com. All right, let's get into today's topic, shall we? All right, at the end of May, the Firearms Policy Coalition actually had a pretty big win in the state of Pennsylvania. It had to do with a law there in the city of Pittsburgh, or a series of laws there in Pittsburgh. Well, where the city council and the mayor decided that they were going to, they didn't care about that whole preemption law thing that the state had passed. And they decided that they were going to pass their own gun laws, gun control laws, that is, right there in the city of Pittsburgh. And luckily, the Firearms Policy Coalition, along with some of our partners, were there to slap them back. And with us once again today to talk a little bit about that effort and our success, Mr. Bill Beck, Associate Counsel for the Firearms Policy Coalition. Bill, once again, it is a pleasure to have you back on the program.
Craig, how are you? Good to see you.
I am doing just dandy, sir. Just dandy. I'm digging the leather jacket, man.
Dude, it gets cold in my office. I know it's summertime, but it gets cold in here, so I keep the jacket over the back of my chair.
Okay. In my office stays hot, especially in the summertime. It's between all the equipment and everything. Anyway, I don't just have my air conditioning on. I usually have my fan running when I'm not recording or we're not doing a live stream. And I also even have an extra cooler. So yeah, the idea of wearing a coat on top of that is not appealing.
Yeah, my office is a converted garage, so I'm like on a big concrete slab, and it gets cold in here.
Nice. Okay. Well, there you go. That works. All right. Do me a favor. Tell us about this win we had in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So this was an interesting case, and it's a case that's been kind of languishing in the courts. This was a case that was filed all the way back in 2019. Remember that, when there was a world pre-COVID? And what the case was about, the case is called FOAC v. Pittsburgh. And it's a case that we worked on with Pennsylvania Attorney Josh Prince and the FOAC, who are good friends of ours. But what happened was the mayor of Pittsburgh at the time, his name was Bill Peduto, he championed and ended up getting passed a whole bunch of gun control regulations that were specific to the municipality of Pittsburgh. And it regulated all sorts of things, but most notably, what the regulations themselves purported to regulate the use of semi-automatic so-called assault weapons and so-called large capacity magazines, which we know, of course, are just magazines. And so we filed a challenge to these regulations, and the grounds upon which we were challenging this is what's called preemption. So there's a preemption law in Pennsylvania, and the court just recently finally said, you know what? You're right, FPC and FOAC. These laws are preempted by the state legislature. So
do me a favor, explain folks exactly what does preemption mean?
Yeah, great question. So in Pennsylvania, and there are a number of other states that have similar laws, what a preemption statute is the state legislature has essentially passed a law that says we own the entirety of the gun regulation sphere. Anything that has to do with the ownership, possession, transfer or transportation of firearms is only able to be regulated at the state level. So the purpose of these laws is to stop what we're familiar with oftentimes, which is this kind of patchwork of gun regulation situations that can happen in the absence of a preemption law, where otherwise innocent, peaceable gun owners are caught going from one county to the other, or in or out of state lines, or out city lines rather, and they find that all of a sudden the gun laws changed, and what was once allowed for open carry is now only allowed for concealed carry, or what you could do without a permit now requires a permit, etc. So to avoid that, some state legislatures have passed preemption laws saying that we, the state legislature, are occupying the entire field of gun control. We're the only ones that can pass gun control. Cities, municipalities, localities, hands off, you can't do that. Well, the mayor, Bill Peduto of Pittsburgh at the time, back in 2019, said, to heck with that, we're going to do it anyway. And tried to create for himself this clever little loophole by saying, we're not going to regulate so-called assault weapons and standard capacity magazines by regulating the ownership, possession, transfer, transportation of them, because the state legislature says we can't do that. But we're going to regulate the use of them. And thinking that they potentially were clever, and mind you, the city of Pittsburgh was represented by a whole bunch of attorneys from every town in this case, so you can guess where they got this great idea. The city thought, well, we're going to create this clever little loophole, and we're going to see if the courts buy it. Well, thankfully, the courts were not fooled. And so just earlier in the month, what we saw was the intermediate level court in Pennsylvania, which is called the Commonwealth Court, step in on appeal and say, no, these do not pass muster. This sort of stuff is preempted, clearly preempted by the preemption statute, and long-standing Pennsylvania court precedents interpreting that preemption statute, and this stuff's got to go.
Well, and folks, just so you know how crazy that is. I mean, imagine, say, for example, you have a concealed carry permit, right? You're carrying. And you use hollow points, right? And you all of a sudden go into a county that passes a law that bans the use of the possession of hollow points. Well, you may be in violation of the law and never even know it, right? That's why preemption is so important, because, especially, it is very, very hard when you are driving from one place to another to know what the laws are. It's hard back east because you can drive through in a reasonable amount of time multiple states, and you have to comply with firearm possession laws and transportation laws in each of those states. So it's hard enough to have to comply with that, but then also to potentially have to deal with every city with different laws.
Right.
That's just crazy.
County, do you know where every county line is in your neighborhood? I sure as hell don't.
Well, exactly. No, and most people don't. And especially if you don't live in that state, you don't know the difference from one county to another. It's a lot easier to look up the laws for a state than it is for a particular county or a particular city.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, and we've spoken about this in other episodes, but let's remember and remind the listeners that going all the way back to 2019, when this case originally was filed and defended by the city of Pittsburgh at the county level, at the taxpayer's expense, then up on appeal all the way up until the mid 2022 at the taxpayer's expense, and now they're threatening potentially to appeal it again to the Supreme Court, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, at the taxpayer's expense. With attorneys provided by Everytown Law. So, when we look at this stuff, you have to take a very close eye and a very suspect eye when you're looking at these sorts of things that are being undertaken by local politicians that have their own individual opportunist agenda, as to whether they're actually acting in good faith and whether they're actually operating in the best interest of their constituency and the people that they represent in the city of Pittsburgh.
Well, I will continue to say this. I believe that there ought to be some sort of punishment or there should be some sort of punitive action that's taken when when they should have reasonably known that this was unconstitutional. Oh, by the way, especially when your lawyers tell you it's probably likely unconstitutional, one would think that that they wouldn't do it, but it doesn't stop them. But then again, like you said before, they're not the ones paying the bill. It's the taxpayers. It's us, or in this case, the city of Pittsburgh, because
Yeah.
when we win, we will be recouping those attorneys' fees.
Yeah, and early on in this case, at the time that these restrictions were passed in Pittsburgh, Mayor Peduto was on the record, in press conferences saying that, essentially that he understood that these were very likely preempted by the preemption statute here in Pennsylvania, but that essentially he had passed what he wished he could do, not what he could do based on the current laws of the state and the city that he was elected to work in, but what he wished he could do. And, if anything, it's political grandstanding at its best, and the people that end up getting to pay for it are the taxpayers, unfortunately.
Right. So where's this case headed from here?
So at this point, as of today, the case has not been appealed. It is entirely possible that the city elects to appeal this case further up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. We are waiting to see if they choose to do that. We certainly hope for the good taxpayers of Pittsburgh that they don't. But should they do so, please believe our attorneys are ready to fight it out all over again. And I suspect we'll be just as successful in the PA Supreme Court as we have been in the Commonwealth Court.
Excellent. Excellent, sir. Thank you so very much. Do me a favor once again, let the folks know where they can follow the legal work of the Firearms Policy Coalition.
You bet. So you can get to our page generally at firearmspolicy.org. That'll take you to our homepage. From there, you can donate, you can sign up, you can become a member, you can buy our t-shirts, you can do any number of fun things. You can check out our social media. We have the best memes in the gun rights game. If you want to check out the legal team's website specifically, go to fpclegal.org. There you can read about FOAC versus Pittsburgh and all of the other cases that your FPC legal team is involved in. Read all of the briefs, all of the complaints, all of the responses in their entirety. Everything we do it transparently. We do it for our constituency. We are turning their money into freedom. That is what we do over here.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, look, there is no organization that is more vicious and entertaining in meme wars than the Firearms Policy Coalition. It is epic. I will just say, if for no other reason, you need to follow us on social media in order to follow these memes, because they are once again, they are epic. They are informative. They are inspirational, and they definitely get the point across.
And prolific.
Prolific. Yes, definitely prolific. Much like our guest today, Mr. Bill Sack.
Thanks, Greg. Good to be here.
All righty. We'll talk to you later. Well, that's going to be it for this edition of Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. With that, I'm going to bid you a fond adieu. And remember, hey, tune in. Remember, become a member, become a part of the Firearms Policy Coalition. Because as I always say, if you're not part of the solution, part of the problem. Don't be a part of the problem. Support FPC today. We'll talk to you again real soon.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.